Thank you all very much again for coming out for the Candidate Forum. We do want to thank a couple of entities. First, we want to thank the Southwest Times for sponsoring this forum. I think they've done a great job. How about a hand for the Southwest Times, please? And of course, a great big thank you to the Pulaski Theater for hosting us this evening. How about a hand for the Pulaski Theater? Great job. We also want to thank the Fine Arts Center for the New River Valley. They do a great job for us. Thank you, Fine Arts Center of the New River Valley. And a thank you to Pulaski County as well. So thank you, Pulaski County. And one young lady who needs a wonderful round of applause is our signer here. This is Marcy Vaughn. Please give Marcy Vaughn a big round of applause. She did a beautiful job. Now, I want to give you a little bit of praise. You did a great job during the delegate forum. But even if the moment strikes you and you've got a lot of passion, hold that in. Put that pause button on there and we will give you the opportunity to do a big cheer and a big applaud at the end. And we do ask that you be respectful of your neighbors, respectful of the candidates, no negative commentary on anything that you hear this evening. We want this to be a positive, affirmational forum. This is a job interview. We want to conduct it in a professional manner. So we're going to be asking the questions of these candidates. We hope that you all will respect that. If we have to, we will pause the forum and continue after we've made adjustments. If we have to ask someone to leave, we may have to ask that as well. But we're not going to go there. I know this is going to be a positive experience and it's going to be great. One thing you may notice is the lights do flicker as I speak really loudly. That is a design of the theater. So if you hold your applause or any additional commentary, that will keep the lights from flickering as much, because as the loud noise hits, that causes the lights to give us a stage lighting. Also, please turn your cell phones to silent, or better yet, off, and just put those away. Recordings are being made by the Southwest Times. Those will be available through their social media and their website, and they're going to bring you the story this weekend. Having said all that, it is time now to introduce our candidates. You know, anytime you run for office is a big challenge. Throwing your hat in the ring for any particular office can be a daunting experience. Through the questions, through the concerns, through all the things that you go through as a candidate. And these candidates for sheriff have all put their hat in the ring to serve Pulaski County. And as we go through our questioning this evening, I hope you'll keep that in mind as we ask them what they would do for this county if elected to this office of sheriff. So first, introduce at the far end of the table, Interim Sheriff Major Mike Worrell. Mr. Worrell. You can applaud for your candidate. Okay, that's good. Former Pulaski County Sheriff's Office Investigations Division, Captain Brian Wade. Mr. Wade. And former Virginia State Police First Sergeant Mike Honecker. Mr. Honecker. Okay, now we gave everybody a chance to get it out of their system. So hold on to that until we get through the forum. We will ask no applause, no boos, hissing, heckling, anything like that during the candidate forum. We're once again going to ask questions of the candidates. We'll begin on my immediate right. Mr. Honecker will have the opportunity to ask the first question, answer the first question. They each have 2 minutes to respond. Carol is taking care of us up front here, and we'll hold up a 1 minute and 30-second remaining, and then a red card when the time has expired. After we finish all of the questions over the next hour or so, we will then have closing statements from each of our candidates. Are we ready to begin? Okay. Our first question is about management experience. Mr. Honecker, you have the opportunity to answer this question first. A sheriff's job comes with a range of abilities and responsibilities that include being able to work well with and having respect from their deputies and staff and managing a department and budget year after year. What is your experience in these areas? Let me read that for you again. A sheriff's job comes with a range of abilities and responsibilities that include being able to work well with and having respect from deputies and staff and managing a department and budget year after year. What is your experience in these areas? Please begin.
Well, my experience begins in leadership from my experience as a United States Marine, where leadership is fundamental to service of our nation and leading others, and you have to grow up very quickly when you serve in today's military, or yesterday's military, as you will tomorrow's military. It's already been mentioned that I served 28 and a half years in the state police. 22 years of that service was in leadership and management and with oversight responsibility of small and large groups and units. And that experience has proven my leadership ability over the years. But it's not only the experience that you get in the field, but it's the experience you gain from your education, going back to school, achieving higher education, graduating from staff and command college, where you learn about resource allocation and analysis and budgeting and personnel and human resource matters, but really where the rubber meets the road and where it's most important is being a leader when it really counts, in the middle of chaos and crisis, when bad things happen. And I've always said I want to lead Pulaski County during times of tranquility and peacefulness and when everything is good. But my experience over the last 32 years, my entire adult life being spent in uniform in one or the other, has taught me to be a leader, and my leadership has been forged in the adversity of fire. By being at the Pentagon in the wake of the 9/11 attacks, by being at Virginia Tech in the wake of the April 16, 2007 shootings, even to leading Area 24 as an area commander when one of our own troopers was killed in the line of duty. So I think my leadership has been proven during times of peace, but also in the fires of adversity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wade, a sheriff's job comes with a range of abilities and responsibilities, including being able to work well with and having respects from deputies and staff, and managing department and budget year after year. What is your experience in these areas? Please begin.
I've worked with the sheriff's office for 30 years. I've worked through the ranks of the sheriff's office. I've worked patrol. I've worked in criminal investigations for 25 years. I was captain for 13 years, lead investigator. I led most of the major cases and crimes that were committed in the county. I worked with state, federal, and local agencies on major cases. I've led the department, leading the major cases on murders and capital murder cases. I've worked with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. I did a lot of asset forfeiture monies and kept up with the monies for years, probably 10 to 15 years. I worked with everybody in the department. The Noah Thomas case, I worked with the FBI abduction team, led that. I worked with other local agencies, Radford University and State Police, ATF, and other agencies, and led that whole investigation. I think my experience there would show that I could lead the sheriff's office.
Thank you very much. Mr. Worrell, a sheriff's job comes with a great range of responsibilities and abilities, including being able to work well with staff, managing a department and budget year after year. What is your experience in this area?
I also have worked with the sheriff's office for 20 years, 15 years as the supervisor. I've worked in every aspect of the department. Teamwork is my main focus as being a leader. I think to be successful, it has to be a team, whether it's in the sheriff's office or any other business. As far as the budgeting aspect, I've had experience with retired Sheriff Jim Davis in preparing the last budget. And as your current sheriff, I currently manage a $3.6 million budget and also the budget of the animal control. I've had the opportunity to work closely with our county finance personnel on different issues, and I've learned the principles of actually doing more with less. My wife and I are business owners here in the county, and we've successfully run a business for the last 5 years. So $3,590,313 is the actual budget of the sheriff's office. It's what's provided by you, the taxpayers. It's my responsibility as the sheriff to make sure you get 110% of what you invest back.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wade, you'll have the opportunity to answer this question first. Accreditation for Pulaski County Sheriff's Office has been suggested as a goal by some. There are certainly benefits from such a designation, especially as it relates to public trust in the department. How important would accreditation be for your administration if elected, and how would you address the costs associated with pursuing that designation? Once again, how important would accreditation be for your administration if elected, and how would you address the costs associated with pursuing that designation? Please begin.
I think accreditation would be an asset to the Sheriff's Office. What it would do is give the Sheriff's Office structure where you have standards that are given by DCJS that you could write policy and procedures with, and also would set standards inside the Sheriff's Office where your hiring process would be the same, your firing process would be the same, also your promotion would be the same. In other words, you couldn't be promoted from one position and move all the way up rather quickly. That asset, the accreditation would also allow you to file for grants that would help take the cost from the county. You can actually get more equipment and personnel through that way. The cost is minimum. I think reconstruction of the Sheriff's Office, where you put people in positions, you have to have a person that can actually keep up with accreditation and set policies in place. And I think it would be a great asset to the Sheriff's Office to have that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Worrell, accreditation has been suggested. How important would accreditation be for your administration if elected, and how would you address the costs associated with pursuing that designation? Please begin.
I agree. Accreditation is it's a positive thing, but as your sheriff, we have to evaluate everything, what the actual costs are. It's been stated at one point the indirect cost is $1,500. Through my administration and myself, we've researched this, and it's at least a minimum $73,000. That's a year. It's going to require one full-time position to be your accreditation manager. The time period for this is anywhere from 18 to 48 months. There's only 96 accredited agencies out of 360 possible in the state of Virginia. If it was such a minimal cost, I feel more agencies would be accredited. We're a very professional sheriff's office. We have a policy and procedure manual, and we obey that. We hold ourselves to a very high standard, and we meet or exceed a majority of the accreditation standards that are already out there. And I promise, as your sheriff, we would continue to move toward accreditation. It's not something we can jump on right now, but in time we can do it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Honaker, how important would accreditation be for your administration if elected, and how would you address the costs associated with pursuing that designation?
Well, from the beginning of this campaign, accreditation has been one of my top priorities. With our entire motto, our entire mantra of our campaign is to make Pulaski County better, safer, and stronger. That begins with having an accredited agency. We can't simply work from the inside out and expect to be held in the same high regard as other professions. None of us are going to go to a doctor who's not accredited. We're not going to use a real estate agent who's not accredited. We want a certified mechanic. We want a licensed plumber or electrician. We want someone in a place of trust who is meeting standards that are established outside of the organization. And that's what accreditation does. It raises the standards of professionalism. It raises the standards of accountability. It raises the standards of transparency. It makes a law enforcement agency better. It makes a community better. And as was stated, there are so many grants out there that are available at the state and the federal level that we can access to work with children, young people, senior citizens. There are so many things we could do to increase the number of patrols through grant funding, but we're not qualified. None of that grant funding is available to us simply because we're not accredited. And I have spoken directly with the accreditation team. Accreditation will cost about $1,500. It'll take about 12 to 18 months because they come in, do an assessment, and tell you everything that's wrong. And then you have time to improve that. And what you generally do is you have one employee who handles your internal affairs, your professional standards, and they also handle the accreditation aspect of your growth. So it's not a full-time position being wasted on that. This community deserves a professional, accountable, transparent agency, and it deserves the best. And that will only happen when we become accredited.
Thank you very much. Mr. Worrell, this is your opportunity to answer the question first. There are a number of levels that a law enforcement officer must move through as they progress in their career. How important is it for a candidate for sheriff to have moved up through the ranks step by step, and why? So once again, there are a number of levels that a law enforcement officer must move through as they progress in their career. How important is it for a candidate for sheriff to have moved up through the ranks step by step, and why? Please begin.
Well, I think it's very important to move up the ranks, to actually have the opportunity to learn the different areas of the sheriff's office or whatever agency you're a part of. But having those opportunities, you become a better leader. You become a better officer. But overall, when you move up through those ranks, you're becoming the person that you really need to become as you set your goals, whether it's to be sheriff or whatever. Also, in that opportunity, you're evaluated by your superiors, the people who are over you. They see what kind of leadership you have and what your future holds for that department. And I feel that that's what has happened. I've had the opportunity to move up. I've moved up through all the ranks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Honaker, there are a number of levels that a law enforcement officer must move through as they progress in their career. How important is it for a candidate for sheriff to have moved up through the ranks step by step, and why?
Well, I think that any person who is seeking the office of sheriff should be a person who has demonstrated leadership in law enforcement. It may not have been step by step through the particular sheriff's office that you're seeking to lead, but it certainly should be in law enforcement. Again, this is such an important aspect of accreditation. Accreditation requires an agency to have a fair and equitable promotional system so that employees do have the opportunity to work their way up through the ranks step by step. Some leadership is learned in the classroom, but some leadership is only learned by experience. And it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes energy to become the kind of leader that you need to be to lead a sheriff's office in today's world. Two people can be in the same job for 30 years. One of those people can have 30 years experience. The other person can have 1 year's experience 30 times. It depends on that person's attitude and their energy and their ambition to grow, to learn, to expand, and to listen. And when we stop learning, we stop growing. When we stop listening, we stop growing. So yes, it's important that we work our way up through the ranks. That's exactly what I did in the Virginia State Police, from trooper to first line supervisor as a sergeant, to becoming a first sergeant and area commander, to becoming a special agent in charge of criminal investigations in 21 counties and 4 cities. That didn't happen overnight. That took 28 and a half years. And it took a lot of adversity, it took a lot of education, it took a little bit of moving around, it took a whole lot of energy, but I feel like that's all made me the type of leader I am right now and has prepared me to be the next sheriff of Pulaski County. And so we make this place safer, better, and stronger. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wade, how important is it for a candidate for sheriff to have moved up through the ranks step by step, and why?
I think it's very important. I've been there 30 years. I've worked about every rank in the sheriff's office. I worked criminal investigations for 25 years. I was a captain for 13 years, lead investigator. And I think it's very important. I think it's very important that somebody has to earn that position and not move through the ranks just because they're a good old boy. I don't think that you should be able to be promoted in 3 months from a sergeant to a captain dual major to a sheriff and say that you had that experience. I've worked every major case, led a lot of investigations, and I just don't think anybody should be moved up that quick. I think you should earn the rank, and I think you should have experience to be the sheriff. Any major case that hits the county, you should have experience in working those through the ranks. I think it's very important that everybody has to go through the certain positions to become the sheriff.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on from management and qualification to public experience, public safety. And we're going to begin. Mr. Honegger, you have the opportunity to answer this question first. Many communities have issues with drug crime and drug abuse. What is the best way to address those issues in Pulaski County? Once again, many communities have issues with drug crime and drug abuse. What is the best way to address those issues here in Pulaski County? Please begin.
Well, Pulaski County, like counties all around us, has a drug problem. And I look at the drug problem as two paths. One is the same old drugs that we've dealt with in law enforcement as long as law enforcement has existed. Cocaine, heroin, marijuana, mushrooms, whatever the case may be. But what we're experiencing in the world, in America today, and right here in Pulaski County, is something called an opioid epidemic. And we have to be very careful, we have to be very thoughtful, we have to be very innovative, we have to be very creative, we also have to be very merciful and compassionate with people who are struggling with addiction. Are there drug dealers, drug pushers, people who profit off of drugs that need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law and incarcerated for as long as possible? Yes, there are. And we will do that aggressively. At the same time, we cannot arrest and incarcerate our way out of this opioid epidemic. Thousands of people are overdosing every day. We need to create, through law enforcement, interfacing with the medical profession, faith-based organizations, social services, anyone who's willing to help. We need to create paths of deliverance and freedom and redemption from addiction. People are struggling with addiction, and we sometimes look at it simply as a moral failure, and we don't look at it as a medical problem. Some folks just simply obtained medication by stealing it, and it made the party more fun. But plenty of people are there through medical conditions. They were put there because a doctor prescribed it to them and they became addicted to it. So yes, there are some people that need to go to jail, but there are some people that need help. If we do not help the people struggling with addiction, then we are not helping families, we're not helping marriages, we're not helping children, and we're not making Pulaski County better, safer, and stronger. So we have to do both.
Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. Mr. Wade, many communities have issues with drug crime and drug abuse. What is the best way to address those issues in Pulaski County? Please begin.
I think first of all we need to educate our younger people to help prevent them becoming part of the drug problem. I think in our county we do have a drug problem. It affects our economy and growth. It affects families, our children, our schools. I think in our county we deserve to have more than one person that is working narcotics in our county. And in our county we have what they call a drug task force. This is governed by the state police, and with that gives them the power to go to other counties. I think we need to have at least a task force that is set up with people that just work drugs in our county, and that should coincide with our investigative group, that they can share information, because property crimes and drugs are related, and when they're separated like they are now, there's no sharing of information. And I think if we bring those two groups together and have a task force of more than one person working drugs in our county, would help our county.
Thank you very much. Mr. Worrell, what is the best way to address drug crime and drug abuse issues in Pulaski County? Please begin.
Well, I feel the best way to approach this is three-pronged: through enforcement, education, and rehabilitation. Through enforcement, we will continue to utilize our drug task force. Our drug task force is made up of 6 individuals. We only pay these salary and services for one person, but we have 6 people on the task force. Our task force is very good. We've actually one of the better ones in Southwest Virginia. Between 2014 and 2016, our task force seized over a quarter of all methamphetamine seized in the state of Virginia. This task force initiates 275 to 300 cases annually. In a publication by the Department of Criminal Justice Services called Virginia Crime and Arrest Trends, it ranked how Pulaski County is doing. From 2006 to 2008, we were ranked 22 out of 95 counties. 2013 to 2015, we rose to the rank of 14. But to address the other problem, which is opioids, it's a little harder. It's hard to police people who abuse their own medication. That's where it comes to the education part. And I agree with Mr. Wade, it really needs to start with the younger people before it becomes an addiction. One thing I've talked about wanting to do is request a drug diversion agent from the Virginia State Police to be assigned to the task force. Drug diversion, they're able to basically work cases involving prescription fraud, that type of thing. I was notified 2 days ago that based on my recommendation, the state police has done this. Another area I'd like to touch is to install a drop box at the sheriff's office. That way, any unwanted or unused drugs could be deposited to get off the streets.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Just so that folks are aware, and as you're aware as candidates, most of the questions that we had this evening were contributed by members of the community to the Southwest Times. And so we're going to go in a slightly different direction and talk a little bit about education and a little bit about the upcoming bond referendum. On November 7th, a new sheriff will be hired by the voters, but they will also be voting on the bond referendum that would approve $47 million to finance the new county-wide middle school. Many have asked the Southwest Times questions asking that we ask you where you stand on the passage of the bond. How would either building a new school or maintaining some level of status quo affect crime and issues related to the sheriff's office? Mr. Wade, this is going to be your question, so let me ask you this. We want you to know where you stand on the passage of the bond for the new school. How would either building a new school or maintaining some level of status quo affect crime and issues related to the sheriff's office? Please begin.
I'm all for the bond. I think anybody that's been by Pulaski Middle School or Dublin Middle School, you have beams holding up the walls. The schools look pretty bad. Looks almost like a prison. All of us, we have offices that have air conditioning. Our kids should have the same. I don't think it would affect the crime rate in the county by doing that.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Worrell, how do you stand on the passage of the bond? Would either building a new school or maintaining some level of status quo affect crime and issues related to the sheriff's office?
As a lifelong resident, I attended Pulaski County Schools with the Pulaski Middle School. My 2 sons, one is still in middle school, so I am aware there is a problem, and I do feel something needs to be done. But I also feel that it's the proper thing to do to allow the people who are going to pay for it to make that decision. As far as how it's going to affect the sheriff's office, I don't know that it'll affect it in any way, budget-wise or other, because our budget is our budget. They're not going to cut our budget. If this passes, it's going to come from taxes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Honaker, where do you stand on the passage of the bond? How would either building the new school or maintaining some level of status quo affect crime and issues related to the sheriff's office?
Well, there is a correlation, and I'll tell you what that correlation is. Again, it goes back to making Pulaski County better, safer, and stronger. In door-to-door campaigning, I am consistently asked about the middle school to explain to people how they should vote on that. And I explain to them, I have one vote, just like you. I get to vote yes or no. And of course, they ask me which way I'm going to vote. And I'm going to vote yes to build a new middle school. And the reason I am is very simple. One way or the other, we're going to invest in the future or we're going to invest in the past. I understand the reluctance to make this kind of investment in Pulaski's future because it raises taxes. But I have found time and time again, There's two areas in which people, well, we always mind having our taxes raised, but there's two areas we will tolerate it: education and public safety. So we're not asking for taxes to be raised for public safety. We're asking for taxes to be raised for Pulaski's future. When I see the signs that say, no new taxes, just fix the old schools, I wonder, well, where are you going to get the money to fix the old schools? We have a choice to make. We invest in the future or we invest in the past. And we cannot go back 25 years ago when they should have been repaired and say, well, let's repair them now. I pick my daughter up frequently from Pulaski Middle School and I see that wall being held up by those metal beams. And I often think, boy, I hope that wall doesn't fall in one day with our children there. So if we believe in the future of Pulaski County, if we want to be competitive with the region around us, the other counties, with their fabulous recreational centers, their state-of-the-art schools, and everything else they have, but we want people to move here. We want people to go to school here. We want people to live here. We want this place to be better, safer, and stronger. And if that is truly the case, then I think that new middle school is worth investing in, and I'm voting yes.
Thank you very much. One of the big areas that our readers of the Southwest Times wanted to talk about was character and community. And so these questions are going to be geared toward that particular area. Mr. Worrell, you have the opportunity to answer this question first. It is important that the person who is elected sheriff be respected and trusted by the community. Issues surrounding integrity and character can undermine that trust. With that in mind, how would you address your character as you ask voters to support you? Are there any allegations, investigations, or issues you would need to address from the past or the present? So once again, how would you address your character as you ask voters to support you? Are there any allegations, investigations, or issues that you would need to address from the past or the present? Please begin.
True character, I don't think it's something you personally have to address yourself. It's something the people in the community, your friends, your family, they know who you are. They know what you are. As far as the allegations and things that have been made, these are issues that you have to answer for yourself. Through the way I was raised, I know that I have to answer the questions about me personally. So I've always lived my life, and especially after I had children, to know that I can always look them in the eye and they can be proud of what I've done and what I've said.
Thank you very much. Mr. Honaker, how would you address your character as you ask voters to support you? Are there any allegations, investigations, or issues you would need to address from the past or the present? Please begin.
Well, first I would say, no, I am not being investigated. I have not been investigated, and I will not be investigated.
Folks, please.
It's a ridiculous notion, one I've had to address over and over, and it's silliness. The Virginia State Police obviously has very high standards. If someone calls and says the trooper raised their voice at it, it's going to be investigated. If an allegation is made that a trooper drove their car too fast while they were on duty, it's going to be investigated. So anyone can say anything to anyone or make any type of allegation. As I sit here today on October 19th, 2017, I have not been investigated. I have never been interviewed. I have never been questioned by any agency or organization about anything. And really what brings this home to me was when I was campaigning just a couple of weeks ago, an older gentleman came up to me and he raised his finger and I thought he was going to say something mean to me, and he said, "I'm going to vote for you." And I said, "I appreciate that." He immediately said, "Well, don't you want to know why?" And I said, "Of course I want to know why." And he said, "I'm voting for you because of what I've watched you do for 10 years, not what I heard him say about you 10 minutes ago." It's unfortunate that you put your name out there, you put yourself out there to serve and to protect, and you subject yourself to slander and all kinds of lies and things like that. But character does matter. It matters a lot. And it matters to my wife and my 19-year-old son and my 13-year-old daughter and the people that believe in me and support me. And Interim Sheriff Worrell just said, the people that know you best know you. They know your character, and that's why they support you. And I think people that have been around me and know me and watched what I have done in this community for almost 11 years, you know exactly who I am and what I am.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I do want to address something with the audience. If you happen to disagree with something that one of our candidates says, please keep that to yourself. We want to be respectful to everyone, and there will be another time and place to talk about those things, but for now we are going to be asking the candidates questions and ask that you please sit on those other responses. So, Mr. Wade, we have the same question for you. How would you address your character as you ask voters to support you? Are there any allegations, investigations, or issues that you would need to address from the past or the present? Please begin.
I do not have any. I'm not under investigation. I've worked 30 years and had the trust of the people, working the cases and doing what I've been doing. I'm like Mike. I think you know, your character should show, and I think mine has showed on my work and how I've done my job for all these years. Social media has been a nightmare, and there's been slanderous lies and things passed around on front doors of people's. And it's not fair. It's not what this election is about. It's about the experience and what you've done. But this social media between candidates back and forth, I've stayed clear of that. And I don't agree, nor did I participate in any of it. And I think that Pulaski County should be better than that. It's not about what he did, she did, or what other people are saying they did, because you don't know what is true. And a lot of lies have been thrown out there and an attack. And I think personally that reflects on a lot of people. A lot of these people are going under false emails and, you know, and throwing their slander out instead of coming face to face with each one of the candidates and saying what they need to say. I think Pulaski County, this election, the way it's been going, has really reflected bad on some of the people in Pulaski. People that weren't even candidates were attacked. And I just don't agree with that, and I think we're better than that.
Thank you very much. Another question that came up as we were going through this process is, how important is it for someone running for sheriff to live in the county and be engaged in the community they serve? And do you currently live in Pulaski County? Mr. Honaker, this question will be for you. How important is it for someone running for sheriff to live in the county and be engaged in the community they serve? And do you currently live in Pulaski County? Please begin.
I believe the sheriff of the county must and should live in the county. I live at 2560 Pleasant Hill Drive, Pulaski, Virginia, directly across from the Pulaski Hospital. I think everybody knows that. But I think it's important that the sheriff, as well as the sheriff's leadership team, live and work in the county. I realize residency policies have been reduced some. I know they were with the state police during my career. For the first 2/3 of my career, you had to live in the county you worked. We finally relaxed those residency requirements a little bit to give our personnel some choices about where to live, where to go to school, which communities to live in. So we extended the residency requirements 15 miles beyond the county line, air miles. But when it comes to being sheriff, you absolutely must live in the county where you work.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wade, the same question. How important is it for someone running for sheriff to live in the county and be engaged in the community they serve? And do you currently live in Pulaski County? Please begin.
I live in Snow, Shelburne Road, and I think it's very important. I think it's very important for the sheriff to be involved in the community and live in the community that he's working. I think you get a better understanding of the people that you're representing when you're out and about with the people. You're accessible, and if you live outside the county, then you'd have to travel in if they need you. But I think it's very important for the sheriff to be part of the community and live in the community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Worrell. How important is it for someone running for sheriff to live in the county and be engaged in the community they serve? And do you currently live in Pulaski County?
Yes, I currently live in Pulaski County. I've lived in Pulaski County my entire life. And I feel it's utmost important for a sheriff to live and serve and just be a part of the community he works in and he lives in. And also, it's by state code that you have to live in the county.
Thank you very much. Our next question, Mr. Wade, you have the opportunity to answer first. If elected, what is your top priority to improve the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office and the service it provides to the community? How would you make this happen given budget and resource availability in the county? So once again, if elected, what is your top priority to improve the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office and the service it provides to the community? How would you make this happen given the budget and resource availability in the county? Please begin.
I think about the top priority would be the drug problem. I think, again, that we need more than one agent that represents our county. And, you know, I know when I was a captain that I would read all reports that came in. Also, I noticed that there was no drug cases coming in. Also, in charge of the evidence room, I noticed no evidence being turned in, and that was brought up to the past sheriff. I know that the formal task force, they do work outside the county, but we need more drug agents that's working inside the county, and more than one. And as far as cost, I think restructuring the sheriff's office where you have less brass at the top and more working positions that are working in the field, and you can actually make you a better task force and put more people working drugs.
Thank you very much. Mr. Worrell, if elected, what is your top priority to improve Pulaski County Sheriff's Office and the service it provides to the community? How would you make this happen given budget and resource availability in the county? Please begin.
My top priority, I think, will trickle down and affect every aspect of the Sheriff's Office. My main goal is to improve and expound on the relationship we have with the community and our citizens. A couple of things I wish to implement is a Citizens Police Academy. Through this, the citizens will be able to experience and know what the Sheriff's Office and Sheriff's Office personnel do on a daily basis. Everything from patrol, investigations, civil process, our court security, our special ops as far as our SWAT team, our crash reconstruction team, our search and rescue team. I also want to implement a community resource deputy. This person will be tasked with developing relationships with the community, with businesses, going around to schools, being able to give safety talks, and just to build those relationships. And I feel that it's one of the key things we have to do to address the drug problem, to address all these other things that have been brought up tonight. And it's not something that would affect our budget. It's something we can do within our budget with our personnel we have now.
Thank you very much. Mr. Honaker, what is your top priority to improve the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office, and how would you make this happen given budget and resource availability?
Well, when we launched our campaign for sheriff, we did it with a 13-point plan to make Pulaski County better, safer, and stronger. Right at the top of that, again, was something called accreditation, because accreditation is so important. If we make the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office a better place to work, then it becomes a place that works better. That's why we need that fair and equitable promotional system. That's why we need those annual performance evaluations. That's why we need that career progression program. So many things that accreditation brings. But some of the other higher priorities also include a child and family protection unit. We have to address the domestic violence issues that continue to go on in some areas of Pulaski County, as well as the child abuse, the child neglect, and the child endangerment that we see too often in law enforcement. We also have to become more engaged in an anti-bullying program in our schools. Too many children's little lives are ruined by bullying. Their sense of hope, their sense of a future, even their desire to go to school is diminished when they are bullied. And we've even seen an increase in the number of children who commit suicide as a result of being bullied. So I don't think law enforcement can remain on the sidelines much longer. We have to work with the school system and, again, other organizations and agencies. And these are the highest priorities I have: to make the sheriff's office better, more professional, to engage the community, to work more with the community through junior law cadet programs, summer sports camps, and all the things that we can do along with fulfilling the agency's public safety mission. That is where we need to interface with the rest of the community if we're going to be Pulaski proud and Pulaski strong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One of the things that we wanted to do was to survey some of the members of our audience here tonight to see what was on their mind that maybe we hadn't anticipated talking about. And one question came up several times, and it actually deals with a very specific topic regarding towing. So I'm going to ask you this question and ask each of you how you feel. Mr. Worrell, this is going to be your question to answer first, and then we'll go through the ranks. So as a towing company in Pulaski County, they are hearing rumors or plans for a towing board to be established, which will consist of members of the general public, law enforcement, and towing company employees and owners. The purpose would be to establish rules and guidelines for all towing companies doing business in the county and to adhere to and address any complaints or issues from citizens concerning towing. Would you support such a board, and what are your thoughts on the matter? So once again, would you support a towing board, and what are your thoughts on those matters? Mr. Worrell.
I definitely would support a towing board. I encourage it. Right now, we filled all the complaints and stuff through the sheriff's office for this process. There's been certain incidences where a person would be towed and they would call us and complain and say that the person or the company that towed them charged them a certain amount based on towing for the sheriff's office, which is completely false. So anything we can do to have a more structured and more limits, I think a board would be optimal.
Thank you very much. Mr. Honecker, would you support a towing board, and what are your thoughts on the matter?
Yes, I would support a towing board. I know that from my own experience, the Virginia State Police has always used a rotating record system or a computer-aided dispatch system to tell us which record to call next. And what that simply entails is towing and recovery services come to the state police and say, I want to be on your towing list. They have to meet certain standards. They have to be an established business. They have to have clean records. They have to have safe equipment. They have to have safe storage facilities. They have to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But once they meet all those standards, then they are included in the system. And they are called by a computer-generated system that removes any favoritism from the system. And we've done that for the longest time. And I think every law enforcement agency in every community should do that. Yes, we should support local business. Yes, we should have a towing and recovery service system of calling them on a rotating basis. But we also have a responsibility to protect the citizens and make sure they're not getting gouged by one record service over the other. So if it includes establishing some fair rates for daytime calls versus nighttime, good weather versus bad weather, and just simply towing a broken down car as opposed to recovering a crashed car, we understand those rates are going to be different. But we don't want it to be unfair that if you happen to get called by this record service, it's $200, but you happen to get called by the next one, it's $1,200 for the same thing. That's why towing and recovery services need to be on a rotating list, and they need to be governed by a towing board that makes sure that our citizens are treated fairly and equally, but so is the business that wants to be a towing and recovery operator.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wade, would you support a towing board, and what are your thoughts on the matter?
I would support a towing board. There's a big conflict right now with the tow companies. If you have a wreck here in Fairlawn and call Yosh's record service there, and if he's not on the top of the list and the guy's in Pulaski, then that guy in Pulaski would be the one that would be called down there. What that causes is safety issues for the guys to get the vehicle out of the road. When the vehicle's right in front of Mr. Yosh's record service, he should be the one that would tow it. That way we could clear the intersection. I think we definitely need to look at a lot of things such as the pricing, how they gouge. I think maybe a towing board would be the thing to have. I think we do need a second opinion in that to get that straight.
Thank you very much. We're going to go through one more round of questions. Mr. Honecker, you'll have the opportunity to answer this one first, and this is a little more theoretical. What is the biggest challenge you anticipate that you'll be facing as sheriff, and how will you address it? What is the biggest challenge you anticipate that you would face as sheriff, and how will you address it?
Well, I think it's a great question. If you ask people inside law enforcement, what is your biggest challenge? The answer is probably going to be different than asking the question from someone outside of law enforcement. The person outside of law enforcement is probably going to say your biggest problem is terrorism, active shooters, drugs, all of those things. But from within inside law enforcement, we look outward at those problems and we say, we can solve those problems. We can fix those things. We can help those people. Just give us the funding and the resources to do it. So from inside law enforcement, it's easy to say, we never have enough funding. But we're not the ones who decide what the funding is. As a sheriff, as a leader in law enforcement, you do the best you can with what you have to do it with. And I've said it over and over again, no matter how much our budgets get cut, because of the commitment of our people, because of the commitment of the type of men and women that end up in law enforcement, the mission still gets done. The job still gets done. But we need more funding, we need more resources so we can continue to recruit and retain the best police officers. The worst thing we can do is recruit great police officers, put them to work for our sheriff's office, and then have someone else hire them away because they can get paid better for better compensation. That's why I think it is crucial that we do our best to increase the pay and the benefits of our existing employees of the sheriff's office so we can retain the best employees. We can do that within the existing budget. If we establish the right priorities, we make the necessary cuts, we can give them a pay raise, we can establish a career progression program, we can make their lives better, and as their lives get better, your lives get better. Because I'll say it again in closing, when you have a better place to work, the place works better. And that's good for Pulaski County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wade, what is the biggest challenge you anticipate facing as sheriff, and how will you address it? Please begin.
I think just some of the issues that need to be addressed is the structure. We have too much rank at the top, and putting people in working positions where we can address the drug problem that is really the main problem in our county, and establishing a task force with more than one person on it. I think that's a major issue in our county is the drugs, and I think that's going to be one of the things, and just restructuring the sheriff's office where we don't have as many brass. I think if you have a good enough administration that you wouldn't need all the other brass, and you can put them back out working positions where you're not straining your road guys for needing people to covered areas. So I believe that would be it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Worrell, what is the biggest challenge you anticipate facing as sheriff, and how will you address it? Please begin.
I feel it's an issue that not just Pulaski is facing, it's nationwide. It's staffing and retention. Right now, with the sheriff's office, we are fully staffed, which I think says a lot because most of our agencies around us are looking to hire. Most of our turnover is due to retirement. Most of the deputies that work for us live within the county. They take pride in what they do. They enjoy their job. They realize that what they do reflects on their family and on their friends. Most of them do it just as a genuine desire to help people, which I feel is one of the cores of law enforcement. Very few people get into law enforcement for the money. Things we can do to combat it. I feel that we have some resources here locally. We have in Pulaski County High School, New River Community College, Radford University, and then our Criminal Justice Training Academy. They all have law enforcement programs. I feel we need to identify and encourage these people who want to get into law enforcement. The pool is getting so much smaller. I feel there's some negative attention drawn to the career of law enforcement, which makes people not want to get into it. But I feel that we have to actively search out and identify those who want to be in law enforcement. And another thing that we can do as the administration is to hire the best candidates, because that makes us a better place to work.
Thank you very much. This next question deals a little bit with how your qualifications differentiate you from your opponents. You're all qualified law enforcement officers with long careers. Mr. Wade, you have the opportunity to answer this question first. How do your qualifications differentiate you from your fellow candidates, and why does that make you the candidate who should be sheriff? Please begin.
Well, like I said, I've worked here 30 years. I've got 25 years in criminal investigations, probably one of the longest investigators that's been there. 13 years as a captain. lead investigator, worked every major crime that there has, been lead investigator, leading the department in solving these cases. I've got a background in criminal law. I've presented cases to the Commonwealth. I have a good knowledge of how to do that case and work these cases. And I think as a sheriff, to actually lead a major investigation, if you have a crime committed in your county, that you should have that experience to be able to direct and mentor the ones below you, especially when you have such a young department like we do. The lead investigator now probably has 6 months experience, and if you've never worked a major case or done anything like that, then it's going to be hard for you to mentor them and show them and know whether they're doing the job right or wrong.
Thank you very much. Mr. Worrell, how do you differentiate your qualifications as a candidate for sheriff? Why does that make you the right person for the job from your fellow candidates? Please begin.
I feel it's a combination of education, experience, and leadership. My education, I have a 4-year degree from Radford University in criminal justice. My experience, I've worked in the sheriff's office for a little over 20 years. I've done it virtually every job within the department. I haven't been static in one area for a long period of time. I know fundamentally how the entire department works, how it operates. My leadership is much different than a lot of people. Mine's more of a team-oriented type. I want to surround myself with people who will not necessarily tell me what I want to hear. If I come up with an idea that really doesn't make sense, I want somebody to tell me that. And the people that are around us, they do that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Honaker, how do your qualifications differentiate you from your fellow candidates, and what makes you the person qualified to be sheriff?
Well, I began my law enforcement career in 1989 and just retired with 28 and a half years service with the state police. And as I said earlier, 22 of those years have been in supervision, management, and leadership. And I have worked for some great leaders and I've worked for some terrible leaders. And we learn both. We learn from people who and what we want to be, who we would like to aspire to be like. And we also work for a dud here and there, and we realize that's not who I want to be, and that's not the kind of leader or supervisor I want to be. So that takes a lot of years of experience, and I think I have that experience. I also have the education, also having attended Bluefield College and obtaining a degree in criminal justice administration, but I'm also the only candidate who has successfully attended and graduated from a major law enforcement staff and command college at Northwestern University, which is a requirement for all state police first sergeants or area commanders. That's where you learn, you begin to add education in the classroom to your experience in the field, and you learn to combine those two things. What you learn from people, what you learn in the classroom, what you learn from your own experiences. We are the sum total, each and every one of us, of where we've been, what we've done, who we've surrounded ourselves with, and what our spiritual beliefs might be. But ultimately, at the end of the day, a good leader is someone who leads by example. It is the most fundamental aspect of leadership, is to lead by example, but also to be a good listener. They often said, if you want to know what's going on in an organization, go talk to the janitor. So we have to listen to everybody, from the number 2 person that works for you to the newest person you hired yesterday, or the person that cleans the building when everyone's gone. That's the kind of leader I am, and I think that's the kind of leader that's going to be a great sheriff for Pulaski County.
Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. We're almost through, gentlemen. How are we doing? Okay, great. This has been a tough campaign, a real tough campaign, a lot of passion. Our last question we'd like, and Mr. Will, you have the opportunity to start with this. What's something positive that you can say about your fellow candidates, something you admire about each of your fellow candidates? Please begin. We're going to end on a positive note, folks.
I'll start with Brian. I can honestly say he's probably one of the better investigators that I know. He's diligent in the job he does. And with Mike, don't know him quite as well. I respect him for the job he's done for so long with the state police.
Thank you very much. Mr. Honaker, what's something positive you can say about your fellow candidates? What do you admire?
This is the easiest question you're going to ask me all night. Buck Dowdy's not here. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Buck. He and I have been friends for 28 years. But I would say the same thing about Brian Wade. I agree with Sheriff Worrell. Brian Wade has to be one of the most skilled and competent criminal investigators I've known. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for him and Sheriff Worrell. From the beginning of this campaign, I made a commitment to be Christ-like, professional, and polite. And I said then, and I will say it again tonight, you will never hear me say anything negative or bad or derogatory about Brian Wade, Mike Worrell, or Buck Dowdy. These are men, whether you like them or not, just like me, whether you like me or not. We put on that badge and gun and went out there every day, willing to die for people we know and people we don't know, people that care and people that don't care. And that's a good enough reason for me to never make a disparaging comment about any of these guys and to continue to hold them in the highest regard and have the utmost respect for them. So no one has attempted to speak negatively about any of the three men to me because they knew that I would only have one, I would tell them I'm not listening to that, and two, they would hear me just say good things about them. These are brave, courageous men, and I respect them and I honor them in front of you this evening. Yes, I want to be the next sheriff, but that does not take away from how highly I think of these three gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wade, what do you admire of your fellow candidates?
I admire that they wear the badge. They walk the thin blue line, as I have. Mike's a good guy. Both Mikes are good guys. But, you know, a lot of people out there that's never wore a badge. There's a lot of us out there that have wore badges. If you've never wore a badge, you'll never understand. You know, we might fight in this campaign, but something happens to either one of us, we're going to be running fighting to take care of, make sure, no matter whether they're blue or gray, or what uniform they wear. But I have the utmost respect for these guys, and you guys would know when you put the hat on or run for a campaign or you enter politics, it gets really nasty. And I have kept a clean campaign, and I've never trashed either two of them or three of them. And I have a lot of respect for them for getting up here like we are, because it's not easy.
No, it's not. And that ends the question and answer portion. Thank you all very much for that. We're going to take 2 minutes each for you to give a closing statement and address why you should be the next Pulaski County Sheriff. Mr. Honecker, please begin.
I do not want to make the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office into the state police. If I was going to do that, I would have stayed with state police another 10 years. But it was something I thought about, it was something I prayed about. And one day somebody brought me this book and said, you need to read this. And the title of the book is The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. And after I read this book, and with God's guidance, I decided to run for sheriff. Because the book really did illustrate to me the importance of the county sheriff. The last line of defense against the federal government, the person that has the greatest responsibility to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Virginia. The person that will ultimately, at the end of the day, defend your constitutional rights, whatever those rights might be, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, or any of the other ones. You know, William Shakespeare once said, some people are born great, some people achieve greatness, and some people have greatness thrust upon them. Now, I don't quote Shakespeare tonight in the same motivation with which he made that statement. We have no control over whether or not we are born great or not. But in everything we do, we should strive to achieve greatness, to do it to the best of our ability. And then we find ourselves at times in the middle of crisis and chaos, and we have greatness thrust upon us. And that's what can happen to any one of us at any time in the law enforcement profession, especially in leadership. I decided to run for sheriff because I believe in this community. I got tired of the great big state police bureaucracy that takes $200 million a year to run. And at the end of the day, it's about tickets. We raise about $7 billion a year in America just on traffic tickets that are issued by cameras at traffic lights. What I want to do is go into the community and make people's lives better. To work with children and young people, senior citizens, veterans, to make this place better, safer, and stronger.
Thank you.
That's why I'm running for sheriff.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wade, your closing statement, please.
I decided to run for sheriff. Like I said, I've worked here 30 years and I've dedicated my life, personal time. Been on call for 24/7 serving the citizens of Pulaski County. I've always took it a pride in investigations. If someone's murdered, like Mr. Bain over in Parrot on Creek Road. He was lured into the house where he fought for his life while 2 suspects cut his throat. I've always took pride in being the voice of the victims and getting the family justice and closure for that loss. I've always took pride in serving the citizens of Pulaski County, and I've dedicated the majority of my adulthood doing that. And I want to keep on working. I wasn't ready to leave when I retired. You know, and I love serving the community. I've served it through the fire department, through the rescue squad, and 30 years in law enforcement. I feel there's a lot more I can do, and I would be happy to serve and dedicate my time as I did in investigation, and give it my all.
Thank you very much. Mr. Worrell, your closing statement, please.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Southwest Times and Pulaski Theater for hosting this forum. I'd like to thank my wife, Wendy, for your support. My family, friends, and co-workers, I want to thank you for your support. Community involvement is the most powerful force any law enforcement agency has fighting crime. A successful sheriff's office has to have a good relationship with the citizens it serves. We will implement programs that will continue to grow this relationship and will benefit everyone. I've lived in this county my entire life, and it has also been my goal since childhood to become sheriff of Pulaski County. It is now my goal to make Pulaski an even better place to live and work. And I know we can do this together as a team. We have 46 dedicated and professional men and women at the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office who serve and protect our citizens every day. The position of sheriff has to be a non-political partnership with the community. We serve and protect all citizens. Our goals are realistic, progressive, and attainable, and will not be a tax burden on our citizens. My opponents have each spoken of their years of experience as a reason why they should be sheriff. However, they have both retired from law enforcement. Usually people retire to kick back and take it easy. Pulaski County doesn't need a sheriff who has chosen to retire. They need a younger, energetic person who has new ideas and who can take this county forward into the future. I am that person. As a candidate, I have the endorsements of retired Sheriff Jim Davis, retired Sheriff Frank Connor, retired Board of Supervisor Chairman Joe Sheffield, retired Coach Joel Hicks, the New River Valley Chapter Fraternal Order of Police, the Virginia State UAW, and the Pulaski County Constitutional Officers Mayetta Crew, Mike Fleener, Melinda Worrell, and Trina Root. But most importantly, I have the support of all the deputies at Pulaski County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of our candidates. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank